having a good time, y'all. Somehow this virus escaped. It looks like it all came from one hotel and a few security guards having a good time. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about media portrayals. I want to delve into Aussie examples, but I also want to delve into examples from the US as well. What kind of sparked this video idea was more recently the story about those two Queensland girls. I think it was two girls. Was it two girls or three girls? It was two girls. Those two Queensland girls who went to Melbourne and they were in a hotspot area of coronavirus in Melbourne, and then they lied about that and traveled back home to Queensland. Queensland, which was previously a COVID-free state, then had an outbreak. It's all very messy. But we're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about it. As always, y'all, as always, do I even need to say it? I just wanna give y'all a little bit of an insight into this, and do with that what you will. Go out and research, do whatever you want. So if you've been on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc., then you would know that a lot of people are talking about the fact that these girls, their names, their faces, and their ages were plastered all over every media outlet that was reporting on this. And a lot of people are talking about the fact that this is the first time, if not one of the very few times, that the media has actually published the personal information of people who had contracted the virus and caused an outbreak. Please don't get me wrong, like, I do not agree with what these girls did. I think that they know full well the actions that they were committing, and the law enforcement will deal with them, and that's fine, that's on that. But let's talk about how the media handled it, because that was not fair. The girls are black. The girls are black, the girls are African, and so you can imagine how the Australian public took that and ran with it. People are now bullying those girls. I saw an awful TikTok of a woman drawing on her lips, mimicking the girls. There are awful tweets saying, send them back to Africa. Someone even said, oh wait, I forgot, it's Black Lives Matter. What was that one tweet I saw? Botched lips matter. Just before I kind of get into media portrayal and everything, I've seen a lot of people talk about the fact that, you know, this is not a racial issue. If it was a Karen, then, you know, we would be saying, that darn Karen. I agree with you to an extent. I think that this didn't have to be a racial issue. I think that if the media had not plastered the names, faces, and ages of these women, then it would not have been a racial issue, because we wouldn't have known anything personal about them to target their race. My friend and I, we were talking about the fact that we were doing quite well. You know, for example, Queensland had 0 cases in their state. Like, they were doing so well when it came to flattening their curve, and the girls just had to do what they had done. It's annoying. It's annoying. And obviously they are to blame, but now that people have seen their names and faces, because there's already that anger of what they had done, what they did was not right. But on top of that, their skin color made them an easy target for the racists to come out to play. And the racists, they did. Unfortunately, they did come out to play, and the bullying is out of this world. I read somewhere that the girls are getting death threats, and I can't even imagine what they must be going through, because on one side, they're going to have to deal with the consequences of their actions, and on the other side, they're also going to have to deal with all of the racism and all of the awful things, all of those death threats that are being sent to them, and my heart really does go out to them. So now I want to compare the messaging of how the story of the young girls was portrayed in comparison to those security guards who actually slept with quarantined patients in Melbourne.
You're welcome.
Two Queensland women who tested positive for COVID-19 after partying in Melbourne went to extraordinary lengths to conceal their activities and re-enter their home state, police allege. their names have triggered a health emergency in southeast Queensland by returning from Melbourne and visiting schools, restaurants, and a medical centre. Oh, y'all. Queensland health authorities are now scrambling to get test residents across Melbourne South and CBD, developing every single tool to contain a... Can I read? Oh my gosh, it says deploying every single tool to contain a possible COVID-19 outbreak. The women returned to Brisbane from Melbourne together on July 21st via a stopover in Sydney. Yo, I live in Sydney now. To catch a connecting flight. The pair tested positive for COVID-19 on late... I'll try this again. The pair tested positive for COVID-19, one late on Tuesday and the other early on Wednesday. It is alleged they failed to tell Queensland border authorities they had been in the declared hotspot and provided false information to border authorities. They carried out criminal deceit. They've been fined with $4,003 and the rest of it. Australia, new coronavirus lockdown Melbourne amid sex, lies, quarantine, hotel scandal, baby. And it says, a serious outbreak of COVID-19 has sparked a new hard lockdown in Australia's second largest city, Melbourne, amid a scandal over quarantine and security breaches at hotels. From midnight on Wednesday, the city of Melbourne will return to strict lockdown for a 6-week period, the state premier Daniel Andrews announced Tuesday. So too will regional Mitchell Shire, just north of the city fringe. The southeastern state of Victoria has been experiencing an alarming spike in COVID infections. First of all, see how long we're taking to get to the fact that the outbreak was caused by these security guards? Let's continue. The southeastern state of Victoria has been experiencing an alarming spike of COVID infections, something which is largely put down to serious infection control breaches in the hotel quarantine system. Wow, beat around the bush much. Anyways, the lockdown comes after 200 cases were recorded in 24 hours. Where's the meat? Oh, it's down here. Okay. Sex, lies, and quarantine hotel scandals. Melbourne's quarantine hotels have been identified as a major source of the virus escalation. Since the Australia travel ban came into force in March, all travellers returning from overseas must self-isolate for 14 days in their hotel rooms. We already know this. Get to the point. Somehow, this virus escaped. Somehow, this virus escaped. It looks like it came from one hotel and a few security guards having a good time.
And y'all can read on if you want. Now, do I need to kind of unpack that, or can we just move on? Because I feel like it's pretty clear the way that the two stories have been portrayed. It's actually quite sad. Now I want to talk a little bit about what this representation actually does, what effect it has, what it means for Black, brown people, people of color, indigenous people. So a professor by the name of Cynthia FRISBY wrote an article about media representations when it comes to shootings in America. And what she had said was Black and Hispanic shooters are more likely to be labeled as thugs, while many white public shooters seem to be given some measure of leniency by attributing their actions to mental illness. This trend not only perpetuates negative racial stereotypes, but also creates damaging stigmas around mental illness, despite the fact that the vast majority of people with mental illness are non-violent, she says. FRISBY also found that stories about white shooters were much more likely to only include objective facts, such as the time, date, and place of the shooting. However, stories about shooters of color were much more likely to include subjective facts, such as aggravating circumstances that might have caused the shooting. When the media does this, it really does perpetuate those stereotypes. Once we're constantly seeing a trend of messaging, if you are not from that community, it is very easy to say they are all like that. Because, well, ABC is always talking about the fact that there are Sudanese gangs that I should be really afraid of. And last night, Peter Credlin was just talking about the fact that Sudanese communities are not social distancing. All of the messages, they marry and they form your thoughts and opinions of particular communities. That does not only just go for white people, it goes for African people who are viewing messaging of Chinese people. It goes for Chinese people who are viewing messaging of Lebanese people. It goes for everyone. And that is why media portrayal, it's so dangerous when it is not done right. And you might say, oh, okay, even though that's always constantly the messaging that I see on social media, in media, I don't believe that. I don't actually think that of Black, brown people, people of color. But I read a really interesting article that was talking about the fact that it is seeping into our subconscious. So we might not always be aware that we are believing certain things about communities, but oftentimes it's there and it's hiding there, and it comes out to play when it's triggered. And it could be triggered by constant messaging. It could be triggered when you see that person walking down the street and your subconscious is ticking, going, ooh, like put your guard up, because remember that thing that we saw 5 years ago about those African gangs. Another article went on to talk about the fact that the media, once they represent certain communities in a negative light, it then tells people who we should and should not have empathy for. It tells people who and who is not worthy of our empathy. That's why people are always harping on about the importance of accurate representation of communities in media and television, everywhere, advertisement. Like, that's why we're always harping on about accurate representation, because representation, it has the power to distort truth. It has the power to add truth. It has so much power. So you might be wondering, like, Henri, what is the purpose of this video? Because I'm not a journalist and I can't do anything about this. Okay, you're not a journalist and maybe you can't do anything about the way that Black, brown people, people of color, Indigenous people are being portrayed in media. But what you can do is be conscious of the fact that it's happening. And when it is happening, always, always, always be critical of the messaging that you're seeing. Don't just buy into what the media is saying, what the news is saying, because it's on the news, so it must be right. Stay critical. Always be critical and recognize where you feel like the information that is being brought to you is not as accurate as it could or should be. Anyways, y'all, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay blessed. I love you all so much. Deuces.